Hey, welcome to Keith's Country. This is one of my favorite places. I like to hang out where it's all about me. There is a little irony in this, however. While all the signs have my name on them, and I'd like for it to be all about me, you are probably so busy reading the signs and seeing all the places that have my name attached to them somewhere that you have forgotten really to pay much attention to me. So rather than it being about me, it's about something else. So let's change that and remove that distraction. That was to illustrate what we sometimes do. We do this thing where we make things all about us. Ant 6, personalization, where we interpret the events around us, the words around us, as if they were about us, and usually in some negative way, usually in a way that attaches some blame to that. The idea that whatever goes wrong, somehow it must be my fault. It's because I didn't do something right. If a child gets in trouble at school, parents will quite often feel and maybe even say, we must not be good parents. We must be doing something wrong. Or what did we do wrong? And if you have kids, if you've raised kids, you probably can relate to what I'm saying. Here's something worth remembering. In the beginning, God's children got in trouble too. Just him and them, they're the only ones there. They didn't do so well. Was that God's fault? Now, Adam thought so, or at least tried to blame first his wife, that woman, but then God, that you gave me. We like that blame game, and sometimes we like to put it on others, but sometimes, like parents who feel at fault because their child made a bad choice, we blame ourselves. Or a woman whose husband physically abuses her, beats her, and she tells herself, thinks to herself, if I were just a better wife, I wouldn't make him so angry. That's really a flawed interpretation of those events. Or maybe a man's wife is grumpy and he thinks to himself, I must not be doing something right. If I were a better husband, she'd be happier. Well, maybe. Or maybe she was up most of the night with a crying baby and her grumpiness has nothing to do at the moment with her husband. That's personalization, interpreting things as if we did something wrong. That leads to guilt, it leads to shame, it leads to feeling of inadequacy, and all of those things leads to general unhappiness, frustration, depression. It's hard to be happy if you think that everything that goes wrong around you in the world is your fault. It really isn't all about you. That may be a hard truth to grasp, but it's reality. Several years ago, I was doing public relations work with a school system, and an assistant superintendent in a conversation one day asked me this question: do you think people in town know how hard we work? I really hated to hurt his feelings, and I tried to soften my answer some, but I had to tell him, I'm sorry, but people in town don't even know you exist. They're all busy with their jobs and their lives and their kids. They don't know the people who are in the central office of the school system. This man's job never got him out in public with people, and so nobody was thinking about him. Now, that may be a little hurtful, but that's the reality, is most people are so busy thinking about themselves, they're not paying that much attention to you. So if they say something or look a certain way or glance at you a certain way, it may not be about you at all. Everybody has a tendency to interpret things as if it's about us. Spouse leaves something out in the kitchen and you've maybe had that conversation before. If you're not careful, you'll think to yourself, well, that's a clear indication they just don't care about me. Well, probably it's a clear indication somebody was in a hurry to get back to TV and just forgot to put something away. It's not really about me, it's about the other person is just thinking about them. If we can remember that, it will help us to do better in life and to feel better in life. The Apostle Paul wrote to a church in Rome, and all of that letter that we call Romans is really about interpersonal relationships. And you might think, well, no, it's in the Bible, it's theology. Well, here's something to ponder. I think you could make a pretty good case that all of biblical theology is about interpersonal relationships. And so Paul wrote all of that theology to help these two groups of people, Jewish and Roman Christians, learn to get along. And it was hard for them. They had different backgrounds, different religious practices, different diets, different holidays, and they're trying to learn to live in community. And one of the things he says to them is what you see on the screen in Romans 12:3. Don't think of yourself more highly than you ought. Now, there's some level that you ought to consider and pay attention to yourself, but not more than you should. And what happened in Rome also happens where we live. We get offended, we're hurt by what somebody does because we think it's meant as an insult to us. They're not doing it my way. The reality is they're thinking about themselves and their way and not giving much thought to us. It's part of that personalization that we interpret everything to be about us. Paul wrote, don't think too highly of yourself. Don't think too much of yourself. I think going along with that might be a fair paraphrase to say, don't think too often of yourself. Forget about yourself a little bit. Get outside of yourself and stop this idea of assuming that everything is about us. Now, it's interesting to me that in verse 2, in this immediate context, is one of those familiar scriptures where we're told not to be conformed, to be like the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. If we change our thinking, it'll change our life. Be transformed, changed by changing your thinking. And that's what this whole series of conversations is about. How do we change our thinking habits? And a part of that is, let's work on eliminating personalization, thinking that it's all about me, and blaming ourselves for things that may have very little to do with us. I think what you'll find as you go through your day today, if you focus on others, focus on making others happy, focus on serving others, and forget about yourself, the more you can forget about yourself, I think the happier you'll be, as well as the people around you. So let me encourage you to do that today and make that a focus of your day, and I hope you have a great day as you go through all of that. Meanwhile, I really want to go hang out some more in Keith's country. Have a great day.